Hmm. Identical things? Really identical? Well, that's a question the philosophers have been asking for a long, long time. And you want to know the answer? Well, let's solve it. What's proposed when we say this? The argument goes that if X possesses a property and Y possesses the same properties, then they're the same thing. So let's explain that for my non philosophy cells out here. Let's see these monkeys from just amazing meme. If this monkey on the left has the property of having a nose 5 centimeters long, then the identical monkey on the right will also have the property of the nose 5 centimeters long. If this is true for every property that the left monkey has, then it is true for every property of the identical monkey on the right. And so we can say they're identical. This is what that little notation on the bottom means there. It just means that for any little property that is a member of that monkey, so for example, the 5 centimeter nose, the same is true, or the same property is true, of our other monkey. He also has the 5 centimeter nose. And so they are equivalent. But is this true? It's been around for a long, long time. But a lot of people are starting to challenge it nowadays, especially because of what it means. Let's give it a go challenge again quickly. So consider these two lifts. One of these lifts is Goyim. On Shabbat, why would I enter the Goyim lift? The other lift is kosher, but they're the same lift. They have no different physical properties, and they are in the same location. So the Goyimness or kosherness of each lift, even though they are the same lift, is purely based on a relational property that I have to the lift. And what a relational property means is just that me and the lift under the property this. So me not going in the lift is relational property between me and the lift. Here I have noted down as negation JXY, as in Jewish person X will not go in Y, the lift. So are the two lifts the same thing if they have different relational properties? Because on Shabbat, we're not going in that Goya left. But it's the same lift, or is it? I would say that it's not the same lift, although you're open to your own opinion. I would say that it's not the same lift because we now have a different property. And as you saw before, we'll go back here, that you need the same properties in order to make an identical relation. And so we have different relational properties here. So isn't that a good enough argument for them to be different lifts, even though they're the exact same physical properties and in the exact same location? And this would mean a lot of things if it's true. It's a good argument for the mind existing as its separate being from space and time, transcendental of our world. And it means a lot of other things as well, but that's just a clear one. So if we accept this, it can change a lot of things in the world. But you might disagree with it basically from two positions. And let's cover those two positions. Now, these are just objections that I came up with, and I'd be happy to see some objections that you came up with. Let's start with the first one. So our first option to reject this thing is to reject relational properties in general. Now, what does this mean? If we reject relational properties, as in I hold a relation to this thing, as a real property, so as a property that counts to a thing being identical to another, what does it mean for our overall understanding? Well, we lose a lot, and so that's why I would suggest not doing this. What we lose is the ability to find location, mainly. And so I've used an example here to illustrate how bad that would be. Consider a river and another river exactly the same. They're both the same of matter and form. Both have the same water, the same rocks, the same structure, everything. And now consider one of those rivers is right next to Paris, and the other river is down in China. are those rivers the same river? It seems quite obvious that these would not be the same river. But if we reject relational properties, we have to say that they are the same river. Of course, you could accept that they are just the same river, but I think that would raise a lot more issues than it solves, really. But you're welcome to accept it. The next thing you might be thinking here is, why do we have to say this question, right? We're just rejecting relational properties. So what's the issue here? Well, the issue is that location is a relational property. We can only define location by its relation to another thing. So the river is defined where it is based on where it is in reference to Paris, or where it is in reference to a person, or where it is in reference to anything. But that's how we define location. So we cannot say anything's location unless we have relational properties. And so what that means is then, if something possesses the same matter and the same form, then it will always be the same thing. Do we want to accept that? I don't think we do. If you're happy to accept that, then I would like to, well, continue discussion, but I wouldn't personally accept that. And so if we don't accept that, we must go on to a different objection, because surely we cannot reject relational here. Relational is a real property. Okay, so the next objection is actually a two-parter. The first part is a pretty weak objection. The second part's a stronger one, but let's challenge both. Let's start with the weaker though. The weaker objection is just to say that if one monkey possesses a property, or even a relational property, then the other monkey must possess that property. A best example to explain this is Superman and Clark Kent. Now think about it. Superman is just the pseudonym or fake name for Clark Kent. So whenever we say something about Superman, we're saying it about Clark Kent. Or are we? Let's say that person X, or me, let's just go with me, has a relation to Superman. Let's say I love Superman. But I don't love Clark Kent. I only think I love Superman. Now, these people who believe in this objection would say, well, you may think you love Superman, but this is a misunderstanding. You actually love Clark Kent. It's not a real property to apply, because you're just misunderstanding it. Is this the case, though? Consider what this objection is hiding from you. And what it's hiding from you is an assumption. The assumption that Superman and Clark Kent are the same person. The only way the objection can work is as follows. You believe a relational property about Superman. Superman and Clark Kent are the same person. Therefore, your belief about the relational property of Superman only doesn't make sense. It applies to both. But that second proposition that we applied there, we can't justify that. That's what we're attacking right now. You can't defend that proposition by assuming that proposition. So the argument fails, as they've just assumed what they're trying to prove. Let's try the second, stronger objection. So this objection relies on change, and I've given you a little bit of example here. Consider the meme 6-7. Great meme, lovely meme, everybody likes it. But then Keir Starmer said it. Keir Starmer went into that primary school and he said 6-7. And now the meme is dead. Nobody likes it because Keir Starmer ruins everything. So what has changed 6-7? And has it changed? How does this affect our Clark Kent example? Well, let's think about the same thing in our example. Superman, I had a belief about Superman, just like I had a belief about 6-7 that it was a funny meme. Then somebody told me that Superman is the same as Clark Kent. And now I have a belief about Superman and Clark Kent. So, relating back to our example, we had a belief that 6-7 was funny. Starmer said the meme. Now we have the belief that it's not funny. Now, would you say that it's fair to say that 6-7 before Starmer said it and 6-7 after Starmer said it are the same thing? I would not. There's new context added to the 6-7. So anything said before Starmer said it about 6-7 is different to anything said after Stamp said it about 6-7. Just the same as my belief about Clark Kent before I knew that Clark Kent and Superman were the same person is different to my belief about Clark Kent now I know that they are the same person. So, what this means about the argument is that my belief was genuinely about Clark Kent and only Clark Kent, because it is only when we've made that reveal about Superman being Clark Kent that we say that the property applies to both. So initially, the property only applies to one. And if it only applies to one, then they aren't identical. And if we also accept that relational is an actual property, then we have to say that the two aren't identical because of the relational property. And that would be a very big change in philosophy. But that's just my view. I've only come up with a few objections. If you want to come up with more, I'd be happy to address them. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think that relational is a real property? Do you think that something else? Do you think the argument holds, or do you think the argument doesn't hold? I don't know. You don't know. That's the beauty of philosophy, isn't it? Anyway, bye-bye.